Hi class, I'm coming to you today to talk to you a bit about your paper number 2, due December 16th at 11:59 p.m. This will be your final paper of the class, and we should look and start to develop an understanding about what this paper is about, because it is going to have a great deal of information that is required to be put into it. It is also a survey or a look back as to everything that you've studied thus far in this semester. And it is important that we don't wait till the last minute and instead start now on maybe a way of starting to organize our ideas, focusing and concentrating on some parts of ourselves that we would like to continue to improve. If we can at least get a good outline as to where this paper is going to go by the end of the semester, it will also help you to narrow down your focus a bit as we continue in our process of active agent reads in this class, as well as when you are going through the practical reading portions for the next 6 chapters or so, you can start to pick out areas that speak to you or make you say, aha, that's what I should be writing about, or that's what I should be changing, or that's what I want to continue to work on towards intercultural competence. So I come to you today hoping to answer some of those questions and give you an effective way to organize your paper. This lecture is going to first go through the prompt that you see in front of you. It's the same prompt that you'll see listed in the assignment section on your D2L. Then we will go over a little bit about researching and using your active agent reads. And the final thing that we'll do is talk a little bit about structure and how a potential paper could be structured for ease and ensuring that I can, or that you are hitting the elements that I am looking for in this paper. So let's first look at what this last paper is. If we'll read along with me, we can do this together. It says this last paper will be a self-reflection of your progress in regards to the components of competence in chapter 12. So you're going to need to read ahead into chapter 12 of your text and start to look at some of the components of competence. In the case of components of competence, I have narrowed it down for you to the social science perspective. And I do this because the social science perspective limits it to the individual understanding of an experience, and so they lay out 4 different types of areas that we can look at for your competencies. Going on from the prompt, you are to evaluate yourself on each of the competencies. So these are our motivation, knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, and skills. This is not supposed to be a summary of chapter 12. I don't want to have a book report on this, but instead these 4 elements will be a great way for you to organize the many areas of study that we've done in this class so far, both practical and theoretical. And what it means practical is, how do we put this into action? What are the types of things that we can do? What are the ways that we can behave? How can we start to communicate? What words can we avoid? What nonverbal behaviors can we use, etc. And then the theoretical, of course, what is that grounded in, or what type of application can we take from our text and from the work that's been done before us and say, oh yeah, this makes sense because it applies to this theory. So take some time and contemplate that. You are going to identify a couple of different things, and we want them to be 2 to 3, if you will, of the most important elements that you feel like you've learned about intercultural communication within the competencies, and then evaluate your intercultural communication progress in this area. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if I am looking at these competencies and I see that maybe my first competency is an attitude, what I want to, or let's say it's knowledge, it's self-knowledge, I'm going to pick maybe 2 different things that I've learned about myself in this class. What has been effective or ineffective in my style of communication that I've been doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and evaluate where I stand. Like, oh gosh, when I started this class, I had no tolerance for ambiguity, or when I started this class, I had no self-knowledge about why I communicated the way I do. Over the course of the class, I've come to understand that these different elements are important. I've started to apply them every day to my daily life. And so you can look at areas such as, let's say, values. Even on your last paper, you now understand values and how values work, in how your own personal set of values influences your communication style. That's something that you've learned in self-knowledge. Another thing that you may have learned is the imperatives for studying intercultural communication, that you know that it is imperative now for you to know communication in regards to culture, because it is going to be one of the essential elements for you to succeed in your future job that you are going into. And thus that self-knowledge has been, made aware. However, with self-knowledge, it's not just a knowing about, like, this is what I learned, but what are my strengths and my weaknesses, as it suggests in the text. So it's very important that we are aware of our strengths, but we also know our weaknesses and where we still lie within those. So I want you to pick 2 or 3 different things that will fall underneath each of these competencies. And when I say things, that means we can go back through the text and it's like, what concepts have we learned about language, nonverbal behavior, stereotyping, racism, migration, value orientations, dialectics. You will be learning about media. Oh no, you won't do media studies in this class, but you'll be doing relationship building, how to adjust for conflict styles. All of this is going to be knowledge that you'll be learning, but any of these things or these topics you can use underneath each of the competencies of motivation, knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, and skills. So let's move on to paragraph 3. It says, please be sure that you are critically reflecting upon yourself. I want details and support of where you've started, what you have learned, and then how you have become or worked towards growing in this competency. We all know that even the most seasoned of intercultural communicators can continue to improve in some areas. Even if you are fully aware of every last thing that is written in this book, or believe that you are an intercultural communication expert in regards to your competence, it is important to note that things are changing all the time, and we can always discover new ways to become more effective. So note that you do have something to work on. Another element that needs to be addressed will be for you to think about how you can continue to improve these intercultural communication skills after this class has ended. I want you to be working or thinking about suggesting a plan that will detail the ways which you can continue to develop your intercultural communication skills after the course ends. You must revisit the active agent reads to cite and develop a plan for your areas of improvement. So think about that, because active agent reads, as well as in chapter 12, they're going to lay out 5 different ways that you can continue to work and to continue to change, just like the readings that I gave you in our active agent reads. What are people doing every day? How are they changing their language? How are they changing their style? What are they doing out there to make people aware of the indifference or the injustice that exists within the world? How can you speak out and use your voice to create more tolerance, less ambiguity, a distraction of the single story? All of these are ways that you can be an active agent of change. Lots of you wrote in your last discussion item about even changing the way that maybe your future children or your children that you have now are. Or perchance, if you're going to be an instructor or a teacher, think about the ways in which your lesson plans can reflect a holistic understanding of a historical event or a social event, rather than telling the single story that has been told in a textbook. That would give an opportunity for an individual to develop a more open mind about the world around them, about a specific group of individuals, about a maybe negative stereotype that's exists for some time. Teach them those critical thoughts. These are all ways that you can incorporate what we've learned in the class in your everyday life. And ideally, that is what I would like to see. So it says here you must revisit the active agent reads to cite and develop a plan for your areas of improvement. Beyond the readings I provide for you, you may want to research opportunities for continued intercultural training and information provided in your community. Please note that out there, beyond studying a textbook or doing anything else, there are a million different ways of which you can improve your intercultural competencies, and that you can continue to work towards the social change and you can continue to be educated. So think about those elements as well. Within your college, within your workplaces, how do you plan on pushing forward, or how do you plan on finding ways or contributing ways that intercultural communication and its effective use can be developed. So what I'd like to tell you is that when we talk about research, of course, I would love for you to use your text that you have. Additionally, there are the active agent reads that I've given to you. Never underestimate the use of a good references section in your textbook or in any other work. So if you are going through a journal article, let's say, go down to the references section and see what they're referencing, or perchance in your chapters in your book, if you'll notice in chapter 12, there's some really great sources that they cite, but you may want to get some more insight onto that source. For example, like they talk about Johnson 2006. I'm fully familiar with this article because I use it in another one of my class, but it's a great resource to use. So all you need to do is go to the back in the references page for that chapter, look up that article, and then you can find that article in whole. And that may be a great way for you to develop some other ideas as to how to put actions into play in your intercultural competence, what that looks like, how you're going to go forward from here, how you can use tools to make or build awareness for things like conflict, or how you can make people aware of their existing attitudes towards others who speak a language other than English in the United States. And how do we go about talking about that, or raising awareness, or creating social change so that it doesn't become an issue of inequity or injustice for others in the world. The other thing that I want to make you aware of is this great thing called your Moorpark Library. So the Moorpark Library has a million different resources for you to use, and people don't do it all too often. But if you haven't and you don't know how to work our library website, there's an amazing tutorial that's called Library Tutorial Search Path. You saw where I clicked on it there. All you have to do is just hit, return users. You can hit first time user, but you don't have to. First time users, just to make sure that your computer is going to work correctly. And if you're using Chrome or Firefox, it should be fine. But all it does is it tells you how to find articles and how to utilize the internet in a more effective way. But if you're having a hard time when you do a search at the library because you're coming up with all these articles that are so long and don't make a lot of sense to your topic, I would really figure out a way to become more what is it called? Like information literate, meaning that you know how to search for sources and you can get information quickly. All of you know how to do a Google search, but you're not always getting the best information. You can find articles here that have been researched, that are peer reviewed, that have been seen by experts in the world, and in that way you know that you're getting good solid information that's going to help you. The other thing this can do is also help you cite sources. Many of us, as you were writing these papers last time, I realized that you aren't 100% familiar with the MLA or the APA style of writing. This is going to be essential to you as you continue in your collegiate career. So if you haven't taken the basic English class yet, that is something that you will cover. But in the meantime, for my class, if you want to, you can click on number 6 right here. It will be a small tutorial on how to go ahead and cite your sources. There's a ton of different researches or research and external sources that you can find directly from here and that you can click on and guide yourself, right? So how to do your citation page at the end, etc. The other thing that I want to, if you're really familiar with how to do this and why we utilize some type of citation, I want you to know that there's also a very easy website called easybib.com. It's one of my favorite things that I like to do. So for example, if I was going to use this website, I'll just cut this as an example real quick, but let's say I'm using a website. So easybib.com is a website that will help cite your sources for you. MLA is free. It looks like APA is now too. No, it isn't. But MLA is free. If, let's say, I have to type or do a book, I just put in the ISBN number. It'll cite it for me. A newspaper, I put in the article, journal, etc. But let's just say for right now I'm doing a website. There's also other 59 options. This is where it's like, oh, I need to cite a speech, or I need to cite an email that was sent to me, or I need to cite a television show. Under those 59 options, you'll find it. But this is just as simple as cutting, pasting, and putting it in. And then all that will come up, it will gather it for you. Here's what we found and what we can create. Bleed, bleed, bleed. This is the source that you gave us. I don't even know if that's working. Okay, hold on. If I went to easybib.com, let's see how I can cite that. Here we go. So easybib.com, yes, this is the website that I would love for you to do. And that's the one that I would like for you to cite. And they're gathering information on it. And that's okay. Let's continue to the final step. And then it's going to show us how to appropriately cite this. So it's like this information we don't have. So it's like, okay, well, we'll never have an author on a web page. Usually not. We don't have a sponsor. It was published. I don't know what day it was, but at least it knows when it was accessed. And then I just say, okay, click citation. And then all of a sudden, here it is. What? I know. So then you just cut and you paste it and you put it into your speech, or I'm sorry, into your paper. The other thing here is parenthetical. I've talked to you about how to parenthetically cite. Oh, EasyBib Pro. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with how to parenthetically cite, that means that when you take a quote, a paraphrase, or an idea from another work and you use it inside your work, which you're required to do, you must give some type of parenthetical citation. So parenthetical citation is when you put an author or a date or a page number at the end of the sentence that you're quoting to say that you got it from somewhere. If you are not familiar with the standards of parenthetical citation, a great resource for you to use would be Purdue OWL. So this is from Purdue University. They have an online writing lab, and essentially this will give you a great detail of how to cite your sources, how to cite them parenthetically, etc. So if we look at MLA, let's see. Sorry, formatting and style guide. If you go to here, in-text citations, the basics, and it will explain to you how to utilize your parenthetical representation, if you see here, and what they want you to do, and how it works for both MLA and APA. So you can use MLA or APA on this, and it will help guide you. So know that. That being said, now we've gone over some of this research. The last thing that I want to go over with you is, and I believe it is not here, it is down here, something I wrote up today in regards to the layout of your paper. And there are many different ways that you can lay out this paper. This is an effective way, at least I think, and something that can maybe help you a bit. So for the introduction, a good idea, just lay out what intercultural competence is, why it's necessary for you as an individual, or if you want to start playing with the concept that it's important for you as a society member, or maybe you want to take the approach and use this entire paper to say that intercultural competence, I'm going to focus on my future profession, and I'd like to talk about how it's going to be important to me in my future profession and in my future job. So if you want to narrow it to something that easy, you absolutely can, or you can just talk about how for you as an individual, just existing in the world around you, or as a social active agent, however you want to do. Then lay out a need for the personal development or change and why you think that something like competence can assist in this approach. And the last thing that you always do in any paper, not just communication, is give us some kind of main idea statement at the end of your paragraph, something that lets us know what you're going to cover in the paper. I.e., these are the 4 competencies I will be describing. Within each competency, I will describe 1 or 2 elements of intercultural communication theory that I am going to evaluate and suggest improvement for the future on. So that would be something as simple. Then what you're going to do is go into the body of the paper. So like I say here, the body of the paper is up to you. I think there's a lot of different ways that you could organize it, but the first thing that you could do is, if we have these 4 different competencies that we're going to be going into, you can lay out each of those competencies. So for example, if I wanted to talk about the first one, I want to talk about motivation. So I can say, well, here's the first competence, motivation. This is how I'm going to define it. You can either do that from your text or in your own words, or from the research that you've done on what it means to be a competent communicator in regards to motivation. Then what you're going to do is you're going to give us a couple different elements of that you find yourself to be motivated about throughout the chapter, or throughout the throughout the entire class. So what do you want to apply to this particular part? What are areas that you became motivated about because of what you learned in class? For example, you learned about harassment, and this became something that you were like, I am crazy over this now. I need to get up and do something and take action. This is ridiculous. That would be a place where you were motivated. And what did you learn about that? And why is it necessary for us to learn about harassment? And why is it necessary for us to study harassment? Who is it going to help? What was your level of knowledge of harassment to begin with? And then now throughout the semester, where do we end up? Do you think that you've done a good job at like starting to incorporate the ideas, or do you think you need to go further? So this is a way that you can evaluate your own essence. So number 2, give a specific topic from the text, 2 to 3 that you want to work with within that component. Then within each topic, give support and explanation for the text and readings as to why it's important for you to know it in your future, and why it's important for you to know it as becoming an interculturally competent communicator. Then what we want to do is we want to give this type of application. So from your readings, you can either do from chapter 12 in the back, or the active agent reads. Tell how you are going to apply, or show how you've already applied these ways of going out and taking action on something like, for example, harassment. What have we learned from the active agent readings? What do you know about steps to take to make that better or more effective? Or what do you know that we can go out and do as part of our everyday life with our friends, with our family, with our coworkers? What can we say? How can we change our behaviors, etc.? So it says that tell us how you will apply, or have already shown application to move forward in competence towards future relations with those from other cultures. So the last thing that we want to make sure is that in each main point, you are grounding your choices or your examples and your claims in some kind of theoretical or conceptual support. That means that you're not just saying, I believe that everybody should be kind to each other. That's great, and I think that they should too, but the idea is not necessarily these big grandiose beliefs. Instead, let's talk about specific things that we can do. Let's claim that that has shown to work before from some type of theory that we've learned in this class. And thus, if I put in, so like I'm going to do A, here's the research that supports that A is the right thing. So if I put A into action, I will then be able to do blank and become more blank and help people who are blank. So that's how we want to see it, grounded in the theory, grounded in the concepts. And then in your conclusion, believe me, you just recap what you wrote about and draw to a close with hope for the future, with hope for yourself, with where you think this will go, with the feelings that you have towards intercultural communication competence in the end. I'll go ahead and put this format for help for paper 2 up in your, let's see, and I believe I could do it right here. Oh, well, I have to sign out. But I will put it in, perchance, your area here of intercultural communication. I'll go ahead and put it in the assessments. I'll put it in the assignment. And I believe I can add a file to this, so I will do so at this time, should you want to go ahead and look at that format. So I'm going to do that. The last thing that I want to make you all aware of are some of the criteria for this speech. So sorry, I keep saying speech, for this paper. If we go ahead and click back on paper 2, where we look at the format, I just have to look at it a little different than you because my mine's different. Let's go back in here really quick. What I do want you to look at are some of the criteria for this paper. So this paper is going to be about 7 to 10 pages in length. For me, I'm more concerned about the quality, not the quantity. And that means that if you only have 5 pages, but you've answered all of the things that I'm looking for, that's fine. You don't need to give me a bunch of crap to fill 10 pages, is all I'm saying. That it's written in proper MLA or APA format. And this means that your headings, your headers, your page numbers, your margins, your font, your spacing, all of that is according to those standards. And if you don't know what that is, go back to that Purdue OWL. That you have a proper MLA, APA Works Cited page, that you have properly noted those citations inside and parenthetical representation. Make sure that you're free from spelling and grammar errors. I can't encourage you all enough to go to the Moorpark Writing Lab and have somebody edit these papers for you. It is free, and your grade is very much affected by your style of writing. Thus, if you are not an effective writer, just like if you aren't an effective communicator, you can't show what you actually know. And a lot of you know what you're talking about, but you're not saying it in the right way in the written form. So go to the center and either 1, get help with your writing to begin with, or 2, at least have them edit it so that you can make sure that your ideas are being communicated clearly. Make sure that it's turned in by the day that you are required, which is, again, 16th of December by 11:59 p.m. and uploaded as a Word file or a PDF. Nothing else works, so make sure that you're uploading it like so. I will leave up the discussion board questions for this particular paper for the rest of the semester. I'll try to go in there once a week and take a look if you've written me any questions. If I haven't gotten back to you in a week, go ahead and say, hey, Amanda, send me an email. I wrote something in the discussion board for the paper, can you go back in and look at it? But if I leave that up there, then all of you will be able to look back at everybody else's questions and see if those questions have already been answered, which I think will be a helpful hint. Anyway, I am around, of course, for assistance and help with this paper should you need to, but make sure that you are watching the video, reading back through the prompt, reading back through your areas, and I'm also more than happy to walk through some type of organizational pattern for you if that is what you would like to do as well. So let me know. Otherwise, I hope that this has been helpful, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.